Hello and welcome back to SpriteGuard Plays Roguelite. We're going to have another attempt at the boss today and see how we can do. We're going to be trying to be careful, but I think it might also be worthwhile to kind of work on some skills that we will need for the boss, because it's really seeming like I just don't have the consistency to take that boss on. And I think we need to play a little bit differently when we get to the boss from how we best play when we're on the platforming levels. Because you have to keep moving, you have to be always on the run when you are fighting the boss. And there's a lot more pickups, there's a lot of collectibles on the boss level, and so I think the kind of the playstyle that we need to practice is a little bit more aggressive, keeping an arrow out more of the time, and kind of relying a little bit more on pickups, because if you've been watching this series, if you've been following along, we do actually leave a lot of pickups behind. And so there's the potential, it's a very risky strategy, but there's the potential to just play a lot more aggressively. And one of the things I've been thinking about is, what would a speedrun of this game look like? And, there's the possibility of what they call new game versus new game plus, which is, whether you start from a clean save file or if you start from a fully unlocked save file. And I think New Game Plus would be a lot more interesting. I think a New Game speedrun would require too much grinding, too much unlocking, too many mandatory deaths, because maybe it's possible to win this game with no upgrades, but I'm so far from being able to do that it seems incomprehensible to me at this point. But it's something I've thought about, what would you have to do? I think you'd have to get much better than I am at reading the kind of the patterns of the generators, kind of figuring out where to go, remembering how to navigate, and then, taking a lot of risks, doing a lot of things that you don't know if you're going to be able to make back the health deficit, the arrow deficit, and just play much more aggressively. This looks like, so recognizing things like that, things that really look like dead ends, I think is going to be a big part of that. There's a heart for us, so we're now actually at full everything. And let's see, we're already on level 5, so we are, proceeding a little bit quicker than I do when I'm playing very carefully. And I think keeping an arrow out is going to be kind of one of the biggest habits that we can develop that will let us move a lot more quickly. Because what that does is, that means that we don't have to wait for the will-o'-the-wisp. We can see what's ahead of us. We can kind of look before we leap a little bit more, and so that allows us to make some moves that we wouldn't otherwise be able to make. Now, I want to go back, because we're not doing a speedrun right now, and so I do want to go back and fill up our arrows. And just kind of, we're going to be practicing some of the skills that we'll need for the boss, but we're not actually taking on the boss yet. And so when when getting through the platforming calls for a little bit more prudence, we can do that. We just have to remember to. And I will admit, one of the big problems in a lot of hardcore gaming, in a lot of different kinds of hardcore gaming, is switching gears. And that's something that I personally am particularly bad at. If I'm playing in one style, it's incredibly difficult for me to switch to another style. And so that's going to be a pretty big barrier that I'll have to overcome. And that was actually something I remember first hearing it articulated by someone else, was Fififionek, who is one of the top HyperRogue speedrunners, and kind of one of the early pioneers in that game. Had a very, very strong top score until Vipul, who's, I believe, the current top runner, basically just blew the theory wide open. But Fififionek was the one who discovered the Icy Land glitch, which allows you to skip the graveyard in that game. So, really, really top speedrunner. And mentioned that that the two mindsets of casual playthrough and speedrunning were just not compatible. Because he wanted to... he'd been talking about wanting to play carefully in order to get to the end game more consistently. And then... Actually, I don't remember if it was he wanted to speedrun to get to the end game very quickly. Oh dear. And then switch to casual play, or the other way around. But one way or the other, he had the idea to switch kind of his mode of play midway through, and he said that it ended up just not being possible. So we are down a heart, but this looks to be the exit, so I'm going to take it, and we are on the boss. So we're going to be, once again, this is where it really matters that we're holding out an arrow, and that's not going to matter much if my platforming is really profoundly bad. And it looks like we're in a little bit... Oh dear, we're in a really bad situation now. Oh my goodness. That fell apart really quickly. But I think that was a good run. I think that we started kind of shifting the way that we think about this game in a way that is going to help us in the long run, even though it got us killed in record time this time around. I think that's the kind of play that's going to get us through. So we're going to keep coming back at this, keep trying new things, keep working on our technique until we manage to take down the boss. And that will be the end of this series, but it will be the beginning of trying to play this game in new ways, because, when I end one of these series, I usually don't stop playing the game. I usually just start playing it in new ways and looking for, is it interesting if we play it this way? Is it interesting if we play it some other way? Can it be speedrun? Can it be score run? And so, the first thing I say, every game starts out as a survival game. Just getting through the game is the first thing you need to be able to do. Once we've got that down, then we can start building on that foundation. And I think that we're getting really close to being able to do that. And I think as I develop my theory of this game, as I develop my kind of the way that I think about this game, will also become more consistent. I have beaten the final boss in this game before, but it kind of feels like a fluke when I'm not able to reproduce that. And so another big thing that we're going to be working on is getting it more consistent, being able to take on the boss and take the boss down with a lot of confidence. All that is in the future, though. For now, we've had a really good run that I think we learned some new things, and we're starting to build, building habits takes time. And so we may not see profit from these new habits for a long time, but we've started building them. If we can stick with them, I think that things are going to go well. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.